After Descartes' death, there was a huge growth of Cartesianism in Europe, especially continental Europe. And many people styled themselves Cartesian philosophers. There were people that philosophized about the nature of the mind and its relation to the body. There were theologians who were influenced by Descartes, and there were even scientists who took themselves to be doing kind of Cartesian physics. The Cartesian physics did not last for very long. It was supplanted by more sophisticated scientific theory. But Cartesian philosophy, in a way, had a big influence because, and in particular because, the dualistic position that Descartes argued for was one that was accepted, even though it had been familiar from before, even as far back as Plato and Socrates' time. Still, Descartes put a sharp formulation of dualism that made it possible to understand a clear version of that view, and it was very influential, to the point that it has become almost common sense to think that, on some level, I am, this very self, is distinct from the body, if only because I could survive the destruction of that body. It wasn't until the middle of the 20th century that arguments that attempted to sort of get at the very basis, the underlying structure of Descartes' position, began to analyze it, scrutinize it, and call it deeply into question. Whereas before, there were certainly materialistic philosophers, scientists who made assertions contrary to Descartes' position, but so far as I know, were not able to provide arguments that would show precisely where such things as the body detachment argument went wrong. But I think by the middle of the 20th century, we have philosophers such as Gilbert Ryle providing some deeper objections to Descartes to show how we could see the force of his position, but also not be moved by it, forced into it, in order to be to the point of becoming dualists ourselves. So Ryle wants to charge Descartes with, in a sense, committing not just an error, but being confused about the very idea of what a mind is. In a way, Ryle wants to say about Descartes that he was not even wrong, he was worse than wrong, because he engaged unwittingly in a kind of confused conversation about the nature of the mind. So, more precisely, Ryle wants to accuse Descartes of committing what Ryle will call a category mistake, putting the mind in the wrong category in order to make it possible to be understood. What is a category mistake? Well, I'm going to try to express the idea by means of examples. Essentially, the idea is that you are mistaken about the logical status of a concept. But suppose that, by way of illustration, suppose that you meet up with some friends over lunch one day and they tell you about how they're planning a bicycle trip across the country, the United States, and they're going to be in search of the average taxpayer. What they're hoping to do is find the average taxpayer. They think that that person might exist somewhere in a suburb outside of Milwaukee, for instance, and they're going to find the average taxpayer and get to know her or him, learn about them, and then continue the trip across to the other coast of the United States. Now, you might be surprised by the idea that they're going in search of the average taxpayer, and you might very well tell them, well, look, I'm sorry, but you're kind of engaging in a pointless enterprise, because the idea of an average taxpayer is just a mathematical abstraction from all the taxpayers that in fact exist. The average taxpayer is not something or someone that you could touch, shake hands with, have a conversation with. It's just a mathematical construction based on all the average taxpayers and the number of taxpayers that there are. So too, if you were to have a family member, say your uncle or aunt, come visit the university, you were to take them around, give them a tour, show them the campus, the buildings, the students, the faculty members, and the others, and then suppose at the end of the day they said, hey, I had a great time seeing the Gamble Pavilion and the Soldiers Memorial and the Wilbur Cross building, and I saw some of your professors and some of your friends, that was all great, but where's the university? If they were to ask that question, you might accuse them of committing what Ryle would call a category mistake by pointing out that the university just is all those different things interacting with each other reasonably smoothly, reasonably efficiently. It's not something that exists over and above all of them or separate from them as another particular building or institution. The university just is all those things interacting. So too, Ryle gives the example of esprit de corps, a sports team. Soccer, baseball, cricket, football, rugby, you name it, can or might fail to play with esprit de corps. But what it is to play with esprit de corps is not a matter of having another player doing a certain job on the field. Rather, it's when a team is playing with esprit de corps, they are all playing, all the usual players that you had before, but playing in a certain way. So esprit de corps is not another player or another substance, it's rather how the players play the game that they do. So too, Ryle wants to suggest Descartes commits a category mistake about the nature of the mind. It's not a substance at all, Ryle will claim. Rather, if you think about what intelligence is, it's not an extra thing lying behind behavior, but rather it is the actual nature of the behavior itself. So some of you might have seen the movie Forrest Gump, in which the character Forrest Gump's mother is often reported as saying, "Stupid is as stupid does." I think Ryle would want to say that's right, and also that smart is as smart does. More precisely, smart is as smart does or tends to do. So intelligent behavior is seen in such things as being funny. A person can be funny because they manage to get other people to laugh. And being funny is how you clown around, how you joke, the timing with which you formulate lines and so on. It doesn't matter what's going on inside of your head, for example. Or imagine playing tennis in a cunning way. That means foreseeing the things that your opponent is likely to do and then sending the ball in the opposite direction so that they're tying themselves in knots in order to get across the court to get to the ball. Tennis played cunningly is a way of playing tennis intelligently. And it's a matter of how you play, not what goes on inside of a occult place known as your mind. Again, playing chess aggressively is a matter of tending to dominate the center of the board. Somebody who plays chess aggressively might very well be likely to win against certain kinds of opponents, but again, that's how you play, not what goes on inside of the privacy of your thoughts. Or a sensitive conversationalist is someone who knows how to take into account the needs, the concerns, the questions, the unclarities of the conversation partner instead of dominating it and just talking about themselves all the time. A sensitive conversationalist, conversing sensitively, is one way of being intelligent, Ryle will say, but it's not a matter of what goes on inside of an immaterial substance so much as it is a matter of how you converse, how successful you are at doing so. So Ryle is going to say that being successful in interacting with the world, including other human beings inside of that world, is a matter of doing it intelligently, doing it effectively. And that's behavior and dispositions. We can go back to our modal properties, dispositions to intelligent behavior. So for Ryle, what it is to have a mind is not a matter of being in possession of an immaterial substance, but rather it is being disposed to behave intelligently. And that's something that is fleshed out, manifests itself in thousands of different ways. Playing a sport cunningly, joking effectively, listening sensitively, and the thousands of other things that you track when you are watching, say, a friend or a potential friend and seeing how they behave, what they're made of, the thousands of other things that you track as you discern what sort of dispositions they have. Those are all qualities of mind for Ryle. Those are all qualities of mind that are manifested in what you do. Smart is as smart does, or tends to do, as opposed to what kind of substance that you're made of. So for Ryle, the objection to Descartes is Descartes' looking in the wrong place when he's looking for the mind. It's not a special kind of substance at all, any more than esprit de corps or the university or the average taxpayer is a special kind of substance. Rather, the mind is, having a mind, being intelligent is a matter of being disposed to act in various effective, productive, useful ways, useful relative to our plans and the things that are worth getting done.